accountancy, I'm not sure whether the subjects are related, but would you know anything about the size of the parallel economy? Black money, as they call it. Would you have any idea?
Sir, I'm not exactly sure about the size of the parallel economy.
How would you measure it?
Sir,
Do you have any estimate of this? What is the size of the black economy or parallel economy?
So I do not have an estimate, but if we were to measure the size of the parallel economy, I think the soil rate of notes, currency note, is one method that is used.
How does that work? Tell.
Sir, the soil rate is the normal rate at which any currency note should be replaced by the RBI, depending on its repeated uses.
All right.
However, it was found even during the demonetization that the soil rate of the currency note of 500 and 1000 was very low as compared to what it should have ideally been. And this reflects that those notes are not being used for the purpose of transactions and deposit in the bank, etc., which is to say that it is being stored in the form of black money in certain households. So this is how soil rate can be a beneficial marker in identifying it.
Interesting concept. All right. So how do we control black money?
Sir, a lot of steps have already been taken in order to control black money. One of them being the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Apart from this, the government is trying to increase incentive for the purpose of digital transaction. For example, in the Finance Act of 2017, it was said that no cash transaction should be conducted above the value of 2 lakh rupees.
And who objected to that? Since you raised it, who objected to it?
Sir, I'm not sure about it. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, all right. You're not sure about that. All right. What else?
So apart from this, tax is deducted at source if you make any payment above a certain threshold in different sectors. So these are all the methods through which we are trying.
And how effective have they been?
So they have certainly been very effective. The digital transactions in the economy has been increasing, and the tax collection, direct tax as well as indirect tax, has also increased over the years.
Yes, TDS has gone up.
Yes, sir.
All right. What is the percentage of TDS to total taxes?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not exactly aware.
What is the percentage of direct and indirect taxes to the total tax collections of the central government?
Sir, it is roughly around 55%.
That high?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the difference between a direct and an indirect tax, and a cess and a tax? 2 questions.
Sir, regarding the first question, the difference between the direct and the indirect tax. Direct tax is levied on the income that is earned by an individual and a corporate as well. So this is progressive in nature, which is to say that as your income increases. And the other one is a regressive tax in nature, which is to say that even if the same commodity is being bought by a high net worth individual or, for example, a common man, the burden of tax will be felt by the same. So the incidence and the impact are on 2 different persons in indirect tax. However, it is the same in case of direct tax.
Okay.
So,
and the second question was about cess versus tax.
Yes,
That's
sir.
my last question to you.
So tax is levied on the income. It is the first instance of levying collection on any income that is earned. However, cess is an amount that is levied on the tax itself, and it is usually collected for a specific purpose that does not go into the central pool of devolution, which is.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Board will interact with you.
Garima, you worked with some UN forum, or you spoke at some UN forum.
Yes, sir.
Is the United Nations now irrelevant, you think?
Sir, I would not say that United Nations has become completely irrelevant. There are certain roles that it still performs very effectively, and it's multiple bodies. However, sir, I believe to reflect the present geopolitical reality, the United Nations needs to be reformed.
Do you think in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, India can become a permanent member of the UN Security Council?
Yes, sir, I certainly believe so.
Why?
There is a strong case for India to become.
The case is there.
Yes, sir.
But you are the foreign secretary.
Yes,
the Prime Minister asks whether we will become a member. You have to give a more definite reply.
Yes, sir.
Will you say yes?
Yes, sir.
Why? What is stopping us from becoming a permanent member of the UN Security Council?
So there are reservations by the P5 members themselves who do not want India to be.
Who is the main person country standing in the way?
So China.
Do you think in 20 years it will change its vote? On what basis do you say that?
Sir, I believe there are a lot of other groupings being formed to advocate India's case in UNSC, for example, through the G4. And
No, I am asking about China. You think China will change its position in the next 2 decades?
sir, probably China can, because China is already facing a lot of troubles with other nations, for example, with the US, and its priorities might change. For example,
What is, in your view, China's long-term objective? In your view, what is China's long-term objective, geopolitical objective?
Sir, I believe in the long term, China wants to be the unipolar power in Asia. It wants to dominate Asia.
So you are contradicting yourself. Unipolar power in Asia. In Asia, only China has the veto. Would it let India have a veto or Japan have a veto? You are contradicting yourself.
Yes, sir. Sir, I believe.
Okay, think about it.
Yes, sir.
What is friendshoring? This term was recently used by somebody.
Yes, sir. So, friendshoring is a concept in international relations which says that given the geopolitical tensions, countries are trying to improve their relation in terms of protecting their core interest with some particular friendly nations.
But it is in some other context. Which other related term comes to your mind when I say friendshoring?
So,
Something else comes to your mind?
nearshoring,
No, offshoring.
offshore.
Now say something. It is related to offshoring. Okay, you think about it
Yes,
more.
I will.
Now, okay, one more. In 75 years of independent India, 2 instances where India's foreign policy, international relations have been successful, and 2 where they have really not been successful. They have failed, in fact. Think for a moment and
Yes.
let's plan. 75, not processes, actual things which happened, events, something major.
Sir, with regard to being in the India's policy being successful, I think the 1971 liberation
Excellent.
war.
Second,
So the second, sir, India's role, which was played during the Cold War, in
not processes, something which actually happened. There was an outcome, there was a result.
sir, protection of Bhutan in case of Doklam standoff is also.
Not at that level.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'll have to think more of it.
2 failures.
2 failures, sir. One, I believe, its engagement in the Sri Lankan civil war.
Good. And second? Very humiliating for us. We all still are sorry about that.
Yes,
This
sir.
62 war.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What is the geopolitical significance of Turkey? Geopolitical. Geo.
Sir, Turkey stands at a very crucial geographic location at the Bosphorus Strait, which is responsible for our energy security. That is the geological significance.
What has been its stand with, what have been the relations between India and Turkey in the last 2-3 years?
Sir, Turkey in the last 2-3 years has been very vocal with regard to Pakistan's interest. It has flagged India's human rights violation in the Jammu and Kashmir, and it is also.
Then why did we send all that assistance and aid to Turkey when that earthquake happened? Let them stew in their own juice.
Sir, India is a country that believes in the policy of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam.
We didn't send to Pakistan when there were floods. Did we?
So
2 years back? Right there next to us? So this is not Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, it's something else. Think.
Sir, Turkey has been recently moderating its stance towards India.
Well, it has not been moderating, but that was the expectation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Garima, you're a student of commerce.
Yes, sir.
Which part of the constitution is devoted to commerce?
So, Fundamental Right, Article 19(1), one of the articles talks about freedom of trade and commerce. Apart from this, sir,
Not article is one part. The whole part is dedicated to interstate trade, commerce,
sir.
and all.
Sir, Articles 260 to 279 deals with interstate financial relations and the finance and commerce part of it.
Not finance, just the commerce.
Just the commerce part.
Just the commerce. Okay. But do you think that articles are useful or used anywhere?
Sir, I believe yes, those articles have significance. For example, one of the article talks about that no state would unilaterally.
When we change the constitution, the constitution was amended to introduce the goods and services tax. What were the major changes that was made?
Sir, one major change that was made was addition of Article 279A in the Constitution.
And what was that?
Sir, Article 279A talked about one nation, one tax, goods and service tax, wherein a GST council would be created and states and the center would collectively and in a cooperative manner levy the tax in such a manner that the interstate taxes on goods and services will be shared between the union and the states in a manner decided by the GST council.
What was the interstate tax before the introduction of the GST?
Sir, the value-added tax.
Okay. Value-added tax was there.
Yes, sir.
And that, what about the central sales tax? Before the introduction of value-added tax?
Sir, as far as I remember, central sales tax was a tax which was levied by the center in terms of interstate sale of goods and commerce. Yes.
And
sir.
what was the percentage?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware.
No idea. Okay. Commerce or accounts. What is national accounts? You know about national account statistics?
Sir, as far as I recollect, it is the system of maintaining accounts for the government.
National account is, GDP.
Yes, sir.
How you calculate your GDP?
Yes.
How you calculate?
So should I?
That is through national accounts.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you, sir.
So what are the classifications? You know about
Sir.
agriculture, industry, service sector?
Yes, sir.
You know about finance account?
No, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not.
Do you know the difference between the government accounting and the private sector accounting?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
So there are two primary differences. The government maintains its accounting on the basis of single entry system, whereas in private sector it is double entry accounting.
Acha, tell me 5 major exports and 5 major imports of India.
So the 5 major exports of India are marine products, rice, pearls and precious jewels, petrochemical processed products, and iron and steel as well.
Okay.
5 major imports would be iron and steel, crude oil, gold, API, artificial pharmaceutical ingredients.
Active pharmaceutical ingredients.
Yes, sir, active sir. Thank you, sir. So that is all I remember.
Acha, tell me, why the government of India started this Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Sir, Atmanirbhar Bharat is the vision of the government of India to make India self-reliant and to boost its export potential in order to reduce the current account deficit and also to position India as a major power in the global supply chain.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Garima, we enacted National Education Policy 2020.
Yes, sir.
In what sense it has been described as inclusive?
Sir, the National Education Policy is inclusive because it makes provisions for the primary education and also the early childhood care and education. Apart from this, sir,
Is it the meaning of inclusion?
Sir, I believe inclusive means to include all the sections of society and even the vulnerable sections from the very early
But
age.
you were talking of primary education, senior secondary.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'll have to
No,
read on.
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Anything else in explaining the inclusive education?
So may I take a minute? Sir, I think the national education policy also talks about vocational education. So I think it would be an incentive for the...
Does it say anything about disadvantaged sections, women,
Yes, sir.
SCs, STs? Does it say anything about it?
Yes, sir. The national education policy
that
talks
is-
about the adversity score.
That is what you must talk about.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
There's a talk of saturation policy with regard to supply of services. What is the saturation policy?
I am sorry, sir. I'll have to read up on that.
I suppose you are the secretary in the Department of Women and Child Development. What steps would you take other than what is being done to empower women?
Sir, I would divide my steps in terms of the different spheres of empowerment needed. So, for example, for political empowerment, I would like to set up counseling centers and capacity building centers at the rural levels to provide those training to the women who are already elected as Sarpanch and Panch, because that is very important for them. So, in terms of economic empowerment of women, I would incentivize the private sector as well as the government sector to hire more women and make women-friendly policies for them. In terms of, sir, socio-cultural empowerment of women, I would again give a major push to the self-help
But
groups.
many government initiatives may go against what you're saying. 6 months maternity leave, 7 days inclusion of extra casual leave, then mandatory period leave. Don't you think it will impact the employment of women in the private sector?
So certainly, sir, these policies may have unintended consequences, but for that, I think the policies that we will bring would be more deliberated and would also include an incentive for the private sector to employ women in their organizations.
Acha Garima, we are talking of India becoming a superpower. We are aspiring at least. What do you think is the prospect of India becoming a superpower?
Sir, I think India has a good chance at becoming a superpower in the coming years. Sir, because we have the youngest demographic population at present, which can be harnessed for India. Sir, apart from this, we are one of the countries which have a very high growth rate when compared to other countries who did not perform well in COVID. Sir, apart from this, India has a very strong democratic credential, and its alliances and relations with other developed countries like
So
USA.
Garima, there is an institution known as Comptroller and Auditor General of India.
Yes.
When was it created?
Sir, the Constitution itself talks about the post of Comptroller and Auditor General as one of the bulwarks of the Indian Constitution. So I think...
How do you rate the performance of the role of CAG?
Sir, I think the role of CAG has been very crucial in ensuring propriety and proprietary in the Indian economy. They have been instrumental in highlighting scams like the 2G scam and the Coal India scam that took place. And from time to time, they have been highlighting any discrepancies that have been taking place. So I believe it has played a very instrumental role.
Last question. What are the security challenges in the Indo-Pacific region?
So in the Indo-Pacific region, the prime security challenge is the assertiveness of China via its 9-dash line. Apart from this, sir, the cyber and piracy concerns in the Indian Ocean region. Sir, third would be the docking of ships that can be seen even in Sri Lanka, that was seen recently. Sir, apart from this, another that I can think of is Chinese string of pearls strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Garima, you are a supporter of women going more and more into jobs.
Yes, sir.
With apologies, my apologies. I'm a conservative gentleman. I feel that I have best wishes to you for right, but by women getting employed, families are breaking up. There is no one to look up at the elders. Children are being neglected. They are suffering psychological problems. So again, say with apologies, my view is that women should be kept inside their homes. How do you react?
Sir, I believe that it is because of the social conditioning that we have been brought up in, that we believe that it is the prerogative of the women to take care of the children. So, but if you look at the basic argument of equality, why should women be deprived of their opportunities and their abilities to take up employment? Sir, I believe in present context, both men and women have become aware of their capability and responsibility, and fathers are equally taking up the responsibility of grooming their kids. Sir, I think this is going to change in the coming years, and we should also be a very positive supporter in this regard by sensitizing our children from the very first day. And then over a period of time, we will be able to interact with a generation of children who are more confident and happy with their mothers working and also supportive of them, sir.
Okay. Now tell me something about Visakha judgment. Have you heard of it?
Yes,
what
sir,
it
I have.
is?
Sir, the Vishakha judgment was delivered as a result of the Bhavri Devi gang rape case that took place in 1997. Sir, in the Vishakha guidelines, the Supreme Court took up the responsibility to develop guidelines for protection of women from sexual harassment at workplace. And sir, after these guidelines, the Parliament enacted the Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women Act 2013.
Okay, now coming to your account, just one or two more questions. Explain what is Vostro account. You must have heard of. Please.
Sir, Vostro account literally translates to your account, which means that, for example, if I am an Indian company and I want to trade with a Russian company and I need to pay them in their currency, so an Indian bank will have an account in Russia and it would be offset by any payments that the Russians have to make to India via their account. So the account in Russian bank, which is owned in Russia, which is owned by an Indian bank, will be a Vostro account.
Two more. In the recent Hindenburg controversy, a lot of short seller word was used.
Yes.
Now can we explain what is short selling in brief?
Sir, short selling as opposed to the conventional selling of shares. In this, what happens is that the person who is selling the shares does not own the shares. He borrows the shares and sells the shares in the hope that later on the prices of the share will fall. Then he will be able to purchase those shares at the lower price from the market and then will be able to return it to the original person from which he borrowed the share. And in between, he will make profit.
Is it a legally valid practice?
Sir,